So then there's skeptics about NATO, about the G8. You obviously think they're still very important, these summits that we have.
I think they're very important.
Why are the summits
important?
Well,
summits are very interesting because in many ways they're action-forcing mechanisms. The bureaucracies get going in every one of the countries because the leaders need talking points. They need to have what's known as deliverables. And I think that it motivates the system. And then, believe it or not, because it is individuals, is the idea of being together, trying to make a decision and showing unity is very important. And so I think Chicago will have an interesting time with it. There are a lot. I mean, it was easier when there were 11 or 16 or whatever. These are a lot. And then there are the 50, friends of NATO. And we had the last summit in Washington. And it's complicated. But I do think that it's very important, and the G8 also. And what's going on now, Margot, is that there is a searching for what the right international institution is. I have never seen the world in quite such discord. It's a mess. That's a diplomatic term. And so, and the institutions, as you were talking about, we're not sure how they work. They were invented 60, 70 years ago now, and I think that there's an issue as to how they're working. There is not confidence in any institutions at the moment at all.
Oh, okay.
I think it's true in terms of our state governments and our federal governments and international. I think the mayors and city councils have the most have elicit confidence because they're closer to the people. But generally, there's this kind of disquiet about who's in charge and what are the. And then added to that this year, it's very interesting. There are more elections taking place this year than I've seen in a long time. So 4 out of 5 of the permanent members of the Security Council are having elections or changes. So we are, the French are, the Russians just had something, the Chinese are going to have a change of generations.
Right.
And in the last few days, it sounds as if the British might, in fact, call an early election. So there's that. Then there are elections in India and Mexico and Venezuela. There's some discussion about an election in Israel. So there's an awful lot of kind of turmoil. And so I think having the summit is a very important kind of glue discussion and sense of common purpose among countries that are democracies.
So do you get, and then we really will go to the audience, so the Chicago Council has, for the last several months, put on several events like this one to teach us all about the summit and some of these questions. I've been to several of the events, and I'm often confounded by diplomatic speak. And I assume there's a course somewhere at Berlitz that I should take. You're a private citizen now, but also a very powerful private citizen. Do you get to say what you want without diplomatic speak when you talk to some of these diplomats you used to negotiate with?
Me? Definitely, but I even did it at the time.
You did?
I had a way that I did things, which was that one began with diplomatic speak. And then the part I think people don't believe is that when you're sitting like this and the other person is a foreign minister, you actually have to begin a conversation in some way, and it does begin in normal ways of friendly talk. But, you know, I traveled a lot, and I would go somewhere, and I finally would say, I have come a long way, so I must be frank. And I do think that, in fact, what does happen is that there's some very, very direct talks.
Good.
What does happen at these meetings that's also interesting is there are the plenary sessions, but there also are an awful lot of bilateral meetings where various people will meet on the, as they call it, on the margins of the meeting. And this is the part that people don't believe. There's a whole kind of series. You actually could sit down like this, Or you have what is known as a pull aside. You're in some big meeting and literally somebody pulls you aside and you
Into
now
the
get to
kitchen
talk
or
to
the-
this
okay.
minister. Or you just shake hands.
Great.
Or this does not happen in this kind of a meeting, but at the UN there were always instructions about people you don't talk to. So trying to keep President Clinton from talking to Castro was a very big deal. But there are all these various kind of minimal to maximal ways that they talk and begin to do business. And then there is a way that it accumulates. So there's a lot that happens. Some of it is diplo-speak, and some of it is pretty...
Diplo-speak, that's the right word. Okay.
But if at the end they say, this has been a very frank and candid meeting, it didn't go well.
You see, I knew there was a course you should take.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to open it up to the audience.
Thank you.
And it's quite an audience.
Yeah, right. Yeah.